Hi, I'm Christina. Welcome to this episode of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Interviews to Inspire. I'm excited to introduce our next guest, who truly embodies a life full of vigor, abundance, and deep satisfaction. With both a strong body and mind, she vigorously chases those dreams to pursue new things, including a second career after 60. Melissa's ideas of wealth have evolved over the years. What once began as a focus on providing financial security for her family has transformed. Now the focus is on the abundance of cultivating deep relationships, friendships, and self-love. This includes experiences through travel, study, and internal growth. Doing things that are meaningful, like giving back to others and offering inspiration to those around her, give her deep satisfaction. Recognizing the things that don't serve her purpose, she has learned the art of saying no and found happiness living a life aligned with her values. Please join me in welcoming our next guest, documentary filmmaker, Melissa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. A little bit about me. My name's Melissa Davey, and as you said, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm 74 years old, and I didn't become a filmmaker till 65. So I led a life of a corporate career for many, many decades, which was preceded by nonprofit world, never ever in the film industry. And then a few things happened when I hit 65 and I made the big jump.
Melissa, your health word is vigor. Tell us a little bit more about how you came up with the word vigor.
Well, when you ask, what does health mean to you? Obviously, people are like free of disease or, you know, they always go right to just thinking about an illness, I think. And for me, the word vigor it encompasses everything surrounding health. If your body and your mind are healthy, then things come to you a little bit more easily. And you're able to tackle things if your mindset is in a way that is in a positive mindset. Again, with vigor, for me, it's like I have to have both of those things, the health of the body and the mind, in order for me to get excited about doing anything.
Do you have practices for each, for your physical and mental?
Yeah, obviously for physical, I am trying to be as physical as possible. Go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week to do cardio and weights, take walks out in nature, which I think is a little bit, it kind of touches on the physical aspect and the mind. And then I also do meditation and journaling. I usually do the meditation and journaling in the morning, kind of sets me in a calm way to go about my day. So to me, it's a little bit of both, that you've got to have that, your mind has to be sharp, it has to be clear, and you have to be calm. And again, your body has to be healthy and strong.
Yeah. Are these things that you've done throughout your career, or is this more recent?
I would tell you that I always attempted to do both for body and mind when I was working, but my work schedule was ridiculous. And, if anybody can relate to the fact that they were in a corporate job or a really big job where you were required to be on 24/7, things fall away. You don't mean for them to, but things do fall away. And my practice of journaling was shortened. My meditations would come when I realized, oh my gosh, I haven't meditated for 5 days. And maybe that's why I'm feeling so anxious. Now that I'm doing what I want to do at my pace, at my time in life, I'm making time for those things every single day. And I wish that I had known that when I was younger, because honestly, I think that I could have found a way to incorporate those into a crazy corporate lifestyle.
Absolutely. Thinking about the pressures in corporate, especially the mental pressures, and finding that time to get self-centered. As you have moved into becoming a documentary filmmaker, you have just released your second film. Tell us about how your vigor has changed with this venture.
I feel more vigor at 74 than I felt at 65. And some of that vigor comes from being satisfied with what you're doing. I have more energy now than I had 10 years ago. And I think because mentally I'm doing what I want to do, and physically I'm keeping myself in better shape because I have more time to do that. Just all around, I feel better because I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And I feel like I'm in the place where I should be, and I'm giving back to people what I should be giving back at this point in my life.
I love it. You know, it's hitting that point where you're saying, yes, this is my life. I'm taking
Right.
it back. I'm doing my things. I've done the work for other people, and this is me.
Yeah.
When was your turning point to say it's time to do this?
It was really at 65, sitting in a corporate position for decades, and I was in a company that had recruited me in to build a division of this company. So I built it and developed it and operated it and enjoyed it. It was wonderful. I had a great time at this company. It was a great place to work. No ageism, which is amazing. No sexism, really, which is amazing. And I was one of the few women in the senior management team. And, it was a great experience. However, one day I looked at the clock and the calendar, and it was seriously, this is a real thing that happened. I was sitting at my desk saying, oh my gosh, I'm 65. How did I become 65 and what's next? I started having that conversation with myself where many people might say, well, I had that conversation starting at 50. I really didn't, because I was enjoying what I was doing, and I never thought about retirement. I never thought of that word as something that I would envision for myself. I always thought that I would do something. And so at 65, sitting there, I was kind of like, okay, I can do this work in my sleep. There's no need to leave. I can stay here forever. There are other people in the company that are much older than I was at 65. And I thought, well, but is this really it? Is this going to be it? And then I really started to have that conversation of, wow, what if you wanted to do something else? You're 65. And so, you hear the social talk about, well, at 65, you retire and you move to Florida and you play golf or whatever it might be. And that was extremely foreign to me. And I had no desire to move to Florida, and I don't play golf and I didn't want to learn. So I really started questioning what I was doing. And friends of mine at work reminded me that I was constantly saying, I don't want to die at my desk. And I would say it in a joking way, but I realized that the feedback they were giving me was, I think you're saying it's time to move away from this desk. You don't want this to be the end. And that was the truth. So I started making lists of all the things that I had fantasized about in my life. We all have fantasies and dreams about what we might be when we grow up. The list was kind of funny. And I went through the list a few times, and filmmaking or something to do with film just kept rising to the top. I was like, well, that's crazy. I don't know how to make a film. What would I do with film? Should I be in a film? Should I write a script? Should I make a film? And while I was having that discussion with myself, I won a day on the set with M. Night Shyamalan, who is a famous director and who lives here in Pennsylvania, where I live, and makes films locally. Unbeknownst to me, had a foundation, and he was, he went through Charity Buzz to raise money for his foundation. And in raising money for the foundation, if you won the bid, you got the day on the set with him. So, short story, I won the bid. And there I was, right at a time when I was thinking about filmmaking, behind the camera with this guy for 8 to 10 hours one day. And it was an exhilarating experience. And I hadn't felt that excited since I was a kid. I never felt that way at work. I would get excited about work when things were going well, and you create something for somebody that they love, and you're like, wow, this is great. But this was more personal to me. This was, wow, this is amazing. And he didn't have me sit in a chair. He had me behind the camera and was explaining everything he was doing. And at lunch, this was the kicker. At lunch, he asked me what I did for work. And I tried to explain my job to this person who's only been a filmmaker his entire life. And he kind of looked at me curiously and he said, "Oh, well, what do you really want to do?" And he was joking. And I said, "Oh, well, I want your job." And he said, "Well, you better hurry up." And it took my breath away. He was kidding. He would probably, if you sat with him now, years later, he'd be like, "Oh, did I say that?" Yes, he said that. And it had such an impact on me at that moment that I did question myself, well, why wouldn't I do it? I better hurry up if I'm going to do anything else. To start something at 65 is a little unusual for a lot of people. So I took that to heart and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, you know what? I am going to do that. Why not? Why not? So when I got home late that night after the day on the set with him, my husband, was real anxious to hear how it went. And I said, "Oh, it was amazing. And I have made a decision that I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to make a film." So the car ride home was about 35 minutes. I solidified that thought during that time period. And then I said it out loud. And, my husband has known me for years, so he wasn't completely taken aback, but he was surprised and he just said, "Oh, okay, let's see where this goes." And so the next morning I woke up after very little sleep and I knew that I was going to do a documentary and I decided that I would do it about older women because that seemed the safest place to start because it would be a story about me. It would be a story that I could relate to. And it would be a story that I thought audiences of all ages needed to hear. So that's how it happened. I went to work the next day. I gave a year's notice because that was the prudent thing to do from a financial standpoint. And I had to mentor somebody to take over this division that I had built. So that's how it happened.
The universe spoke and you you followed through with vigor. That's
I,
fantastic. What would you give advice to someone who is wavering in that back and forth of going, wow, you know what? Maybe it's not time in my life anymore to do this. It was a dream once, even if it still gives them that excitement. What advice would you give?
I would advise them, and I do this regularly, to really sit down, have a conversation with yourself and with others who support you as to why is this impossible? And there could be some reasons why some of your dreams are impossible. Like, for instance, if you're 65 and you decide, oh, I want to be an airline pilot. Well, that's not possible. Or I want to be the president of the United States or whatever. There are some far-reaching things that would be impossible for you to start doing probably at age 65 or so. That would be my guess. But really look at those realistic things that you've written down, that you fantasize about or you have fantasized about, and start taking notes and tell yourself why it would be impossible. Then make another list and talk about why it is possible and what would you have to do to make that happen. And most of the time, and from what people tell me, is the thing that gets in the way is fear. I don't know, I wasn't trained. Okay. I wasn't trained to be a filmmaker either. And that was a little bit of a fear. Or I don't have the money to do anything different. I didn't really either at that moment, but I thought that I could sit down and make a plan and figure out, well, where could that money come from? Because there are ways of supporting any new business that you want to support. So it's kind of like making that checklist of all the things, all the reasons why it won't work, and then going to the other side and challenging those thoughts and saying, well, if I did this, it's possible. Or if I did this, it's possible. And then you get to the bottom of that list and you go, well, What is stopping me from trying it? Fear? Okay. Then let's talk with someone and get through that fear and at least give it a try. And give it a try on a small level. It doesn't have to be that you quit your job tomorrow and you immediately start this next one the next day. It can be a well-planned event. And everyone that I've spoken to that did it in that kind of measured way was very successful with what they did. Or they found out as they started the new venture, it wasn't what I thought, so I'm going to move to the next thing on my list. And it's keeping that list alive and finding those possibilities and knowing that people do it all the time, even with fear, even with reservation, that we do things that seem impossible or that sound impossible to other people, but really they're not. Nothing is impossible if you want to do it.
Stay tuned to part 2 and learn about the wealth word for this interview. Subscribe and click the link below to find out about bonus tracks and how to join our community.